Welcome to the Breakthrough Success Podcast, helping you achieve that breakthrough you've always been looking for in your business. And now your host, Mark Guberti.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Mark Guberti, and this is the podcast for marketers and small business owners who are looking for the breakthrough for their businesses. I am very excited about this show. We are going to talk about making revenue on Shopify with our guest, Dan Rusu. Dan is the owner of Lighting Shoes, an e-commerce site which brings in over $10,000 per month for him. He got the website from someone on Flippa and turned it into a profit-generating machine. Today, he's going to share some insights on how we can leverage Shopify to increase our revenue. And now, it is my pleasure to welcome Dan to the show.
Hey everyone, well, I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, Dan. It's great to have you here. And Shopify is just one of these things where I've heard about its potential, but I would like to understand it more. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of how you make revenue using Shopify, I like to ask all my guests how they got started. So for you, how did you first come across using Shopify to make revenue for your business?
Sure. The way I first came across it is the past few years I've been studying software development, and I was looking to try to build some type of plugin or something that would bring in monthly recurring income. And so I browsed around some of the different content management systems like WordPress and some of the different e-commerce platforms, one of which was Shopify. Just looking to trying to find any area where there's opportunity for me to build some type of plugin that website owners would then be able to use, would benefit from, and would pay me recurring monthly income for. And I came across Shopify. I really liked their interface, their integrations. And I just saw it was a growing platform. A lot of people speak very, very highly of it. So initially I came across it because I was looking to build software, and I figured a great way to learn what people might need and what Shopify might be missing is just to have my own Shopify site. And browsing around online, looking at Flippa and other websites, I came across Lighting Shoes, which was for sale. Went ahead and purchased it, and have been using it and been learning more and more about Shopify as I've been going with it.
And you have learned quite a lot on Shopify. I remember seeing that in 1 month, you made just over $10,000 with about 11,000 visitors on your site. And that is really amazing because that adds up to almost $1 per visitor, which if we could all achieve that rate would greatly increase revenue. So how are you able to tweak things around to basically achieve that rate for the Lighting Shoes website?
Sure. So Lighting Shoes, the majority of the traffic comes from Google AdWords and social media as well, but Google AdWords is the largest by far. And so what I did when I purchased the site, so the actual work that I put into it myself was I went in there and with the goal of trying to increase the conversion rate on the traffic it was already getting. And I ended up being able to increase it from when I purchased the site, it was converting at about 0.75% of visitors. And then when I was done improving the site by adding new product images, adding discount pop-ups, abandoned cart emails, just adding more things in there to try to increase that conversion, I was able to get it up to 2%. And going from 0.75% to 2% pretty much doubled the income of the site. So when I bought it, it was bringing about $5,000 in sales on average. And when I was done with it, when I was done implementing all the conversion improvements, it was up to $10,000 instantly.
So one thing I find really interesting about this is you bought the website for someone back when he was making $5,000 per month, and then you basically talk about all these things of how you're able to double the revenue by going from 0.75 to 2% conversion. You shared a lot of great insights, but this is selling LED shoes, and I don't think this wasn't your niche in the beginning. Like, you weren't born, raised LED shoes. This is I want to create one. I want to sell a bunch of them. So how exactly did you make it work, even though you didn't know much about the niche when you bought the e-commerce site?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting you bring that up. I would have never thought that I would be selling LED shoes. Our demographic for these shoes is really we have two different types of people or buyers that we sell to. One is EDM fans, festival attendees, so that kind of world. And then the other one is selling to parents who want to buy cute shoes for their kids. And I don't fall into either of those demographics. I wouldn't have considered myself to buying these shoes, maybe as a gift for my niece or a nephew, but and actually owning this product and using it, I would never have thought of doing that. Fortunately, this product, it's a simple product. You don't need a ton of industry knowledge or anything like that for it. And so that's been beneficial. I've been able to pick it up and learn about the product and the demographic in a fairly short period of time. So that's definitely helped. Otherwise, it would have been much more difficult. But one thing I will say about that is that going through this process, I've discovered the importance of doing something that you are passionate about, or at least being in a niche or an industry that you do have interest in. Because otherwise, a lot of things just kind of turn into a grind.
I definitely agree about that because, work takes 33% of our lives. If we're working 8 hours per day, that's a lot of time to either be really happy or really frustrated. And another thing about the whole decision to buy on Flippa, do you feel like that was critical for you to get your feet wet with Shopify? I mean, it's a big investment to buy a website like this. Do you feel like it was worth it? And what advice do you have for someone who's on the fence of, do I buy a website like this?
I think I don't think it was necessary. I could have started, if I wanted to learn Shopify and see what opportunities existed for app development, I could have built a Shopify site from the ground up. In my case, I feel it was worth it because I was able to purchase the website. The owner who was selling the website was, what's the term for it? Distressed, in a sense you would say, where they just simply didn't have, because of a different business that took off and was very successful, they simply didn't have the time to put into this one that required to take it to the next level and make it successful. Especially at that time, they had been purchasing shoes from China, and their Chinese manufacturer would ship the shoes directly to the customer. And that resulted in, 3 to 4 week shipping time and a lot of lost packages. And so their customers weren't happy. They were getting a lot of returns and chargebacks. So in my scenario, I feel like it was totally worth it because it was a great investment. I bought it for a good low price because of the amount of work that it required. And at the same time, with having a site that was already running and already producing traffic and sales, it really forced me to get in there and focus and make those improvements right away. When you know that you're losing sales, if you buy something as an investment and you know you're losing sales because the website isn't converting as well as it could be or should be, that's a big motivator to get in there and improve it right away versus if I had started something from the ground up.
I love how you mentioned fulfilling the orders and how the China manufacturer gave problems because it would take 3 to 4 weeks to ship to different people. I would love to touch upon fulfilling orders later, but you were talking earlier about how you used Google AdWords and social media to ignite this site and basically allow it to generate this revenue. And I would like to have a stronger focus on Google AdWords for this particular question because that seems like your biggest strength over social media. So how did you use AdWords in particular to increase your site's reach?
Okay, so when I bought the site, the AdWords campaigns was already set up and was already running. So coming into it, my goal with AdWords was to try to increase things like the click-through rate, try to increase the reach of the ads so we would get more impressions and more clicks, and to try to lower the cost per conversion. So with this website, since it's an e-commerce site, we're advertising under AdWords shopping. So which is different than just regular AdWords. If you jump on Google and you search for any type of product, what you're going to find is that typically at the very top, you'll see a few products and prices, and that comes from the Google Shopping page results. And so with this site, we're doing Google AdWords shopping campaign, really. And so what I personally did to try to, going back to what I said, what my goal was with AdWords, the first one was to try to lower the cost per click or increase the conversion, the click-through rate. And one of the things that I did for that was changing the product image. So a lot of people use, for shoes, a lot of people use just a very standard white background shoe with the shoe faced horizontally. And what we did was I hired an image designer who went in and just kind of angled the shoes a little bit, put a drop shadow, made it look like the image was professionally taken. And just by doing that, that increased our conversion rate. I don't know exactly how much it increased it, or our click-through rate. I don't know exactly how much it increased it because I was doing all of these changes kind of at once and wasn't tracking the impact of one thing versus another. But that definitely increased the click-through rate. So that was one thing that we did. Another thing is we changed the site. So this was a minor thing that had a big impact. The previous owner was charging for shipping. What we did is we increased the price of the product and then just started offering free shipping. And by doing that, free shipping was then advertised on the AdWords ads, which also helped increase our click-through rate and also our conversion rate on the site. And then other than that, one thing that was huge was going into the AdWords campaign and adding negative keywords. So the site, when I had purchased it, was getting traffic from – the products were getting traffic from all kinds of keywords that were unrelated. And so by going in there and adding negative keywords, we were able to cut out the traffic from those keywords, which was costing a good amount and was just wasted clicks because they weren't targeted.
So you're able to basically look through your AdWords and see what's working, what's not working, what can I add, and you were able to create a marketing strategy which has allowed you to experience more success. But with that success, you've obviously had to take in more orders. So you mentioned how you went from the site going from 5,000 a month to now 10,000 a month. And I'm wondering, how exactly do you fulfill these orders?
Right. So I do a drop shipping model for this website. as I had mentioned earlier, originally the previous owner was shipping from China. And so my goal with one of my goals with buying the site was to improve the fulfillment, to lower the returns and chargebacks and all that stuff. And so when I bought the site, I started just looking online to see if there's anybody in the U.S. that sells these shoes at wholesale and would be willing to drop ship them. And I came across, in my search, I came across 3 companies that had warehouses of these shoes in the U.S. and were willing to drop ship. 2 of them were just far too expensive. And so out of those 3, I was left with one who was willing to drop ship from the U.S. So shipping time is average 3 days, can be up to 5 days. And their price per shoe was low enough that there was still enough profit in the site to be worthwhile. So, long story short, or to answer your initial question, we're drop shipping from a wholesale provider that's here in the U.S.
And how exactly did you negotiate with these wholesalers? Because I know that some of it can get really complicated and technical. So how did you? What was your approach to reaching an agreement?
Yeah, so I was pretty fortunate in that the company I found they were already drop shipping for other sites, for other guys out there. And so they had a process in place already, so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. The most important thing was nailing down exactly what their process was. So this particular vendor, they like to be sent emails with the orders. And so I set it up in Shopify so that every time there's an order that's placed, an email is automatically sent to our vendor's email, and then our vendor will ship out the shoes and email us back a tracking code, and we take that tracking code and insert it into the website, and the customer is notified of the tracking information. So that was one of the most important parts, is just making sure that I understood their process and was able to implement it successfully. And then you've got things like what do we do if someone has shipped a pair of shoes that don't work? What's your process on that? How do you handle returns? And so I went off of again, I was fortunate that they were already drop shipping, so they had a lot of these things in place. So I kind of just let them lead in regards to those processes, and then gave them my input here and there on different things. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, it does. So all of this came about because you bought a Shopify site. You took it very seriously. You took all these steps to get the person to ship out the shoes. You took all the steps to increase the conversion rate, do all this stuff with the AdWords. And it all started when you bought the site. So I'm wondering, from that perspective, how do you buy Shopify sites as you did and then profit from them?
Sure. Well, there's the biggest website marketplace, I think it's the biggest, is Flippa, at least the one where I've seen the most listings on. So what I would recommend to anyone that's looking to do something similar is take a look at Flippa, and then take a look at some of the other ones. I think websitebrokers.com is another one. And just have a realistic expectation. I feel like going into this myself, I didn't have a realistic expectation of exactly how much work this was going to take. Like during this interview, everything sounds like it'd be simple and direct and easy. but everything took a good amount of time, and more time than I thought. For example, finding the vendor, and nailing everything out. That was at least a 2-week process, from finding the vendor to getting the agreements down to getting the first pair of shoes shipped out, to working out any of the issues that we had. So I would recommend anyone going into this just have a realistic expectation of how much work is required. Make sure you buy from someone that you speak to, have a phone conversation with them. Make sure that they're trustworthy. Double check all the statistics. Ensure that their traffic source is one that has longevity and is going to last for a good amount of time. And preferably look for something where there's opportunity for you to grow it. So with this website, there's a huge opportunity, because this website, when I purchased it for its main keywords in the Google organic searches, was appearing on page 6, page 7 generally. So it had some SEO foundation built, but it wasn't getting any kind of organic traffic. So with this website, I've gotten doing some of the SEO work on it. I've gotten some of the products to rank on the first page, and get traffic from that. I think the past week we've maybe gotten 5 or 6 orders just from organic traffic. That's free traffic. So, and my plan is to increase it so that more and more products are on the organic first page, and it's on the first page for its main keywords, which would be LED shoes and light up shoes. And so there's a massive opportunity with this website for me to go in and improve one area, in this case, SEO. And, from that, I should, once everything has been done and it's ranking well and everything, that will have multiplied the website's income maybe 2 or 3 times. So that's what I would recommend, is just go on there, browse around, get familiar with things. If you do buy, make sure you speak with the person and that they're trustworthy, and look for something, especially if you specialize in a certain area. If you specialize in social media, maybe look for a website where they do great SEO wise, but their social media is very poor, and you can go in and make improvements and really increase the income and the value of that asset.
I'm really happy that you're pursuing the SEO, because that's going to open up a new stream of income for you with all of that organic traffic coming in. And when I originally went into this interview, I originally saw Shopify as like a side hustle where I just want to quick correct me if I'm wrong type of thing. You set up the site, it's a lot of work, but then once it's all set up, you just check stats and make occasional tweaks. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my eventual goal with it. So this past week, I've been training someone, a virtual assistant, to do all the customer support and handle the tracking numbers and things like that. And so I'm hoping to outsource that area of the website. The shoes fulfillment is already outsourced, and everything is getting taken care of by the vendor. And right now, I'm building up like the SEO campaign. I'm building up the social media campaigns, and eventually, my goal is that all of those things are also running, and I have people taking care of those areas. And so I can fully step away from the site and just let it run. And maybe you never fully 100% can walk away from something, is kind of what I've been learning. But I'd like to get it to the point where I'm maybe doing an hour or 2 hours a week of input, maybe just providing some guidance on customer support. If we have a customer who we're having issues with, or things like that, different just kind of guidance on some of the campaigns. But eventually the goal is to have it just kind of running on its own for sure.
And if you do get it to run on its own to the point where you're only involved on occasion, do you see yourself expanding Shopify? And is this like a great side hustle route? Or do you see yourself doing bigger, like, not bigger things, like I didn't mean it like that, but like another project that is different?
Sure. That's actually something I've been thinking about myself these past couple of weeks. Is originally I went into this with the goal of building software for Shopify, and I've got a few ideas, a few things that I've seen are potential opportunities, potential plugins that would provide a lot of value to Shopify site owners. And so my question to myself right now is, once I've got this site all automated, do I want to then pursue that? Or do I want to find other products that I could do something similar with? Do I want to find other sites on Flippa that I can purchase and improve for that residual income? So to answer your question, I don't really know. That's something I've been thinking about myself these past couple of weeks more and more. And so I guess I'd have to let you know that one at a later time. But one of the great things about this is that it is very repeatable. What I've done with lighting shoes, now that I've built up these skills and this knowledge, I could very easily build another Shopify site or find another one to purchase and make improvements on it as well.
That's definitely true that the first time is going to be really hard. I'm learning that right now because I'm still in the middle of planning out my first summit. So it's definitely hard the first go. But I mean, if you do the next Shopify site again, it's going to be super easy for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one word you could use to describe this is a challenge, which it was a fun challenge for you and it's been very profitable for you. And this perfectly transitions into the question I'd like to ask all of my guests, which is, what's one big challenge you have faced in your life and how did you overcome it?
Oh, okay. Question kind of throws me off. Let's see, a big challenge I've overcome in my life. Well, I think if I had more time to think about that, I might be able to give you a better answer. But just going off of what's on my mind right at this moment, I think a challenge that I've had to overcome is working for yourself. I've been self-employed and working for myself for, let me think here, the last 6 years. So since I was 22, I'm 28 now. And I think that there's a temptation for fear to creep in, because you are the source of your income, and paying your bills and your livelihood is all reliant upon what you're able to produce with your own hands, So I think something that has been constant temptation is to allow fear to creep in and to just wonder where you're going to be in a few years' time, what's the security in the work that you're doing, things like that. So that's something that I've worked to overcome. And the first few years were harder because when you first start off working for yourself, obviously you're not making as much money. You're just starting off. But the last few years I've been doing pretty well. So I've been able to – that's been helping with that fear. But it's always a struggle. You're always having to fight against that, and affirm and remind yourself that you're going to be all right. So I guess that would be my answer.
That's a very valuable insight because I feel like fear holds a lot of people back, and definitely with the self-employed part, definitely. Because, I mean, with the self-employed, like, you're calling the shots, which, like, to me feels amazing because, like, I've been doing it for a while, but to someone doing it for the first time is like, where do I go? Can someone just like give me orders and give me a paycheck? I mean, it's stressful in the beginning, but it is so worth it to be self-employed.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree.
So within your journey, you have learned a lot of great lessons. You have shared a lot of lessons with us throughout this episode, and I'm wondering what is a powerful lesson that you want Breakthrough Success listeners to take away that you have learned on your journey?
Oh, okay. Let's see. I've got a lot of things I could say. I guess maybe one of the most powerful things is understand that anything good is not easy. Everything that's good, so running your own business, having the freedom that comes with it is wonderful. But it's not going to come easy. I mean, there are stories and times where people do have it where it comes easy. But just understand, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about having realistic expectations, just understand that most of the time you're going to have to grind something out. And don't give up initially. You know, you do something, and people that do digital marketing understand this a lot. You start an AdWords campaign, it's not profitable. You make a few tweaks, it becomes a little bit more profitable. You make some more tweaks, it gets a little closer. Then you balance out. Then you go on with the campaign for a few months, and then finally it's profitable. So I would say my advice to people would be just understand, go into it with hope for the best, but expect that it's going to be hard, and don't give up on something just because it doesn't initially work. Keep working at it, grind away at it, and eventually, most of the time, things do end up working out.
I absolutely love that message. It definitely captures the beautiful struggle of being an entrepreneur, just putting in all this work, knowing you're after this big, massive goal that you dream about, you manifest, you vision it, and one day you're going to finally hit it if you continue working hard. And that's the reality. If you have the mindset, if you believe in yourself, you keep putting in the work, no matter how hard it is, you're going to get there.
Yep, absolutely.
So one thing I like to ask guests as we approach the end, because I like to expand knowledge in the sense where I want to give people a point to go after each episode for how much more knowledge they can acquire. So one thing I like to ask my guests is for 3 book recommendations that they can think of based on like what books they've read that have had an impact on them.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, for sure. How to Win and Influence Friends or People. How to Win and Influence Friends. Carnegie, number 2. And then most recently, I've been reading a book called Prayer Can Change Your Life, which talks very heavily about the power of affirmations and the power of being connected with God or a higher power. And that book is it's life-changing. So I would highly recommend that. I don't know the author's name, but the book is called Prayer Can Change Your Life.
I absolutely love all 3 of those books. I'll definitely be checking those out. And for everyone here who they're wondering where to find Dan on the web, I'm going to give you the spotlight right now. Let us know where we can find you.
Lightingshoes.net is my site. And then you can look me up on LinkedIn as well.
Dan, it was a pleasure to have you on the Breakthrough Success podcast. Thank you for taking the time today.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mark. My pleasure.
I thoroughly enjoyed that interview. Dan provided a lot of great insights on Shopify and to how we can use it to expand our businesses. I also really enjoy his case study of how he was able to generate all this revenue on Shopify and just basically provide us with all the valuable insights that he provided with us in this episode. So if you forgot to take notes, then don't worry. We've got you covered with the show notes. Visit marketbirdie.com/E41 for those. You can ask your questions over there, which I'll be more than happy to answer. To never miss an episode, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on whatever player you are using. If you are a regular listener and haven't done so already, I would greatly appreciate it if you could give this podcast a review or a rating. Two ways you could do this are through marketbirdie.com/iTunes or marketbirdie.com/Stitcher. That ends this episode. Don't forget, dream big, achieve greatness, and unlock your potential today. How does over 100 retweets per day sound to you? My free ebook, 27 Ways to Get More Retweets on Twitter, has you covered. I use the methods within this ebook to get over 10,000 retweets every single quarter. To learn more and get access to this free resource, visit markbirdie.com/retweets.
This podcast is a production done by Mark Birdie. For more insights, head on over to markbirdie.com.